World Forest Day. Today is World Water Day. So in the second hour of this program, we have dedicated it to looking at environmental conservation. We'll be talking about how we are doing as a country in regards to how we are conserving our forests and also looking at our water catchment areas. But on the first part, it's a bit political. And in studio with me, I have a panel of two gentlemen. They are not new faces on the program. always really appreciating your insights into the political journey that Kenya is taking. I'll just begin by introducing the gentleman on my far left. His name is Willy Kamau. He's a political analyst. And of course, we have Dr. Joseph Rotich, also a political analyst. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for creating time.
Anytime.
So a lot really has happened. And we were here last week on Tuesday when the United Democratic Alliance was having their National Delegates Conference, where Deputy President William Ruto was endorsed as the presidential flag bearer of that particular party. And a lot has happened on the campaign trail. We've just been picking up, a few issues that have stood out, and also looking at the way ahead, even as the country prepares for the upcoming nominations. Yes. And I'd just like us to start from that particular point on Tuesday, when the Deputy President was endorsed as the UDA party presidential flag bearer. And this now paved way to what even the Azimio la Umoja is currently, calculating, the choice of running mate. Yeah, I like the positive, how you've started this by smiling. I mean, this is something that is not going to be easy for either side. Talk of the Kenya Kwanza Alliance, talk of the Azimio la Umoja Alliance, because a lot of issues come into play. But I'd just like to, first of all, before I even bring in what I think, I'd just like to get from your perspective. I'd like to start with you, Willy. In this choice of a running mate, because the presidential flag bearer aspect seems to be quite something that we are putting aside, if you ask me, unless other contenders will join the race. But now we are looking at the running mate factor. Yes. What is it that should inform this decision for both Kenya Kwanza and Azimio la Umoja? I'll also get your insights, Dr. Rotich.
All right, Serfine. I am happy this is a continuation of what we discussed here last week. I had predicted that 80% of the conversation that would be at Kenya Kwanza will be direct attack or direct speeches towards the president, because we said that the president is the biggest obstacle for William Ruto to be the president. Otherwise, if there was no Uhuru factor in this 2022 competition or other race, then it would have been a very clear victory for William Ruto, considering that he has been able to maneuver the whole country the last 4 years. That is quite deep and effective campaign. And so moving forward, there is going to be a lot of ile tunasemanga unachezea mtu, you wait to see what your opponent will do so that you may do it better. And now the running mate factor is now where the real puzzle is. There are some people who are saying that the deputy president, or rather the running mate factor, is not an issue. You should not consider it so much from your community, considering some of the tribulations that the deputy president has had to go through. But I want to differ with those people and say that a running mate from whatever community is a very good position, because it helps you position yourself to be the next president. If William Ruto was not the running mate of President Uhuru Kenyatta, being the deputy president of the country for the last 9 years, it would have been a tall order for him to be the deputy, to be the president, to be the presidential candidate he is today. He's a strong presidential candidate. You can't take that away from him. You can't deny it. And so he has used that position to really position himself for 2022 politics. And so any community the running mate will be picked from will play a very big part in ensuring whoever picks the best from the best community gets up there. There is now the issue of Mount Kenya. William Ruto could be looking at getting his running mate from Mount Kenya. Right? It is also speculated that Raila will still get his running mate from Mount Kenya, and this is the reason. If William Ruto today got 50%, of the Mount Kenyan bloc votes. That's about 4 million votes. It means he's way in front or ahead of other people in terms of blocks. If he got a block in Mombasa, that's about 2 million votes. So that's 100%. One who gets 100% block from not a so concentrated voting background will not be like one who gets 50% of Mount Kenya. From Mount Kenya is 4,000 million votes. And so if William Ruto gets his running mate from Mount Kenya, that positions Mount Kenya in a very good place, because 50% can be in government, 50% will be in opposition.
All right. Two main points I'm getting from your argument there. The running mate factor is not something that can be underestimated.
No, you can't play around with it.
It's a crucial issue
very,
to look at.
very crucial.
And of course, also looking at the Mount Kenya region.
Factor.
Also, you're bringing in the Mount Kenya factor also.
That's where the numbers are. And they don't have a presidential
We'll dissect
candidate.
that. We'll dissect that in a bit. But also just you weigh in onto this subject. The running mate factor. Some think it's not an issue. Others feel it's a really big issue, like Willie is also putting it. What do you think, Dr. Rotich?
I think before I come to the issue of the running mate, I want to digest a little bit about the perception that some few or maybe majority of the people are thinking that His Excellency the President by supporting Right Honorable Raila could be of a big value. In this case, we have to look at this way. Any government, any sitting government, is the one that is being focused or over-focused. And what the majority of Kenyans are actually focusing are like the mistakes. You hear about the current government, people are saying, oh, prices of goods have gone down, the economy is dead, all sorts of things. So all the dirty linen actually can easily be pasted upon the current government. When you talk about a new person, a brand person, like now who is a new party that is actually being, like UDA, it has no history in the Republic of Kenya because and Ruto is being looked at as a fresh person in the field, even though he has been in the same government. Are you looking at it? And that is why, and that is why these people are now reforming. After all these people running away from the Jubilee Party, the immediate thing that they thought about was to reform the party, to call it a new name, to give it a new logo, to give it a new look, and then maybe a new beginning, a new breath. And what they have done so far is that they are looking now at Jubilee as a new party and not the original Jubilee party that these people contested in. Why is it that, why is rebranding, why is it that the rebranding actually became so necessary? It became necessary because the perception of Kenyans, how Kenyans looked at the old party, they looked at with all the 30 that it goes with it. Now that they are now looking at it as a new party. And that is why I'm telling you, to me, I'm looking at the support of Right Honorable Raila Odinga by His Excellency the President is that he may carry the 30 part of the party that was in power. Because the party that we are going to see now is Azimio. Even though it is an umbrella of the several parties, it is being branded as a new beginning. Which, of course, in this case, when people look at it inside, they look at the original party, that is a Jubilee, that is in power, that is the party that is also associated with all these things that you are hearing of.
So your argument is the endorsement.
The endorsement may not add any big value. It has value, but not a big value. Because what I would have perceived it as a value addition is being neglected by the dark side of the Jubilee government.
What if the coin was flipped? What if His Excellency the President was supporting Deputy President William Ruto intact?
Had Jubilee stayed intact with Ruto in the system, still the dark side of the Jubilee would have been more expounded by the public. I'm not saying just because he went to a side is more clean than the rest, but what I'm just saying is that had the party remained intact, they will still be struggling against Right Honorable Raila Odinga, because Raila has never ruled this country, and of course not so much is being talked about him.
So his support wouldn't have added value whichever direction it took, even if he was supporting the Deputy President?
The Right Honorable Raila would have been more even proper in his rightful shape had he remained intact on his own.
Allow me to differ with him.
No, I'm just curious. What if the coin was flipped? What if the president had endorsed the deputy president, William Ruto?
Let me tell you.
Allow me to finish.
Yes.
And the DP also has gone round the country talking about yangu kumi, yako kumi. I mean, if it was not important for the president to support him, would he have brought in that?
No, what I'm just explaining to you is this. The current government has got all the dark shades. People can talk against the current government, but they cannot talk against a government that they have not experienced. So what I'm saying in this case, had Raila remained in his own party, say NASA, the former NASA, it would be more lovable. I mean, atakuwa angependwa sahi kuliko vile hako sahi. Unajua what has happened? He has, to me, he has tainted himself with the dark side of the Jubilee administration. So when this celebration comes so strong, whatever is seen to be the dark side of Jubilee will just be painted automatically on Raila's Azimio.
That is quite debatable, though, because
it is extremely debatable. And I want to differ with him. How is it possible? A man who has been the president
So in this case, even in Western, we may not get 100% because that was the base of Right Honorable Raila Odinga. So if we will ever succeed, if Western people will ever be very generous, out of 2.1 million, we may get maybe 1 million or 1.2 to 1.3. That is in my own analysis. And Mount Kenya, we are sure of getting over 4 million. I can be sure we are getting over 4 million. So we cannot abdicate or rather remove ourselves from the 4 million and go for the 1 million. We shall have done
so it's a game of numbers.
Yeah, so it's a game of numbers.
The options.
And that is why we are saying
is a game of numbers.
What we can assure our brothers and sisters from Western Kenya, we need to discuss together on the same table. We have to listen to them. They are very, very important to us. And in this case, if we have to win and form the next government, we must be able to listen to one another. And the best strategy is to go for those, I mean, that strategy that will give us votes.
A winning formula, that is what you maintain. Willie, what do you think, and what will this mean then? This is just an analysis. Let's say maybe it may not happen this way, but this is just an analysis of what is likely to happen. So in the likelihood that Kenya Kwanza gets the running mate for their presidential flag bearer from Mount Kenya region, what will it mean for the likes of Musalia Mudavadi, who was also passionate about becoming the next president, and the Western region that has really for a very long time also salivated over this seat and thought that being in Kenya Kwanza would actually offer them that opportunity. How can that crisis be managed?
Politics is about numbers, politics is about history, and politics is about projection. Why won't Musalia was the kingpin of Western, he would come on table and bargain and say, I have 4 million votes of the Western nation, so I want to run for presidency. I want the deputy president position because he's assured of the 4 million solid votes, but he does not have that. And so what happens if Musalia joins, like now he has joined Kenya Kwanza, it assures him of a position in the next government. We do not know which position he will occupy, but we can project and say, since he has been an economic minister in terms of, he was a minister of finance at one point, that is the highest he can get from Kenya Kwanza if they were to take the next government, because it doesn't come with much of numbers even to Kenya Kwanza, and they know that, and so he cannot even bargain for the deputy president position because he does not have the numbers. Remember, depending on the history, that he once vied because he had the numbers on the ground, 4 million votes, he would be looking for just another 2 tribes to make the next government, but he can't.
All right. At least you agree on one thing. I'm just sticking, areas of agreement and disagreement. But then talking about having that solid backing, I just out of curiosity, in Rift Valley, does the Deputy President William Ruto have that 100% backing? There is Gideon Moi.
My sister, I can assure you. Without any,
why can't you just allow me to finish? There is Gideon Moi with KANU, which now is fully into Azimio la Umoja. We have the Chama cha Mapinduzi that is being fronted by Isaac Ruto, former Bomet governor. Are those, things that probably the DP would be looking to
I think
air out?
Isaac Ruto, for one, fully support His Excellency the Deputy President. What he was only suggesting that because of these smaller parties, I think you can allow us. So he's in Kenya Kwanza. So he's part and parcel. When it comes to the real voting, he will vote for His Excellency the President. I mean, the Deputy President. Number 2...
it looks like you've already...
Number 2, no, I'm telling you the truth. That is my home. And then when you talk about Gideon, Gideon, for one, it is rumored that he's not even going to defend his seat of senatorship in Baringo, County, leave alone to have a party called KANU. So that in itself, he knows that home is not there. Because if you don't have the support from your own backyard, you are not anywhere. I think Moi lives and exists because of the goodwill that he has with His Excellency the President.
So there is no hurdle for the DP?
These are the first families that we do respect. And that is where he's surviving on. When you talk about Moi, you talk about the former head of state. And that is the name that we know. These others, maybe we know because of the others. And what I can tell you, 100%, I'm sure Rift Valley will vote as a block to His Excellency the Deputy President. I mean, there is no...
Azimio has not made inroads in Rift Valley whatsoever?
Azimio, I'm not saying, let me not say 100%, because Azimio, there are some pockets of places where you find Azimio. But when you also talk about Azimio, you talk about a very small number of our sisters and brothers who have maybe traveled from Nyanza, Western, those who are aligned to their own homes. Because I don't want to say, when you see votes from Rift Valley, Eldoret, or Kericho having had maybe 100,000, you may think that these are the original challenges. No, they are our brothers who have assimilated with us, and they are still thinking about home, which of course it is guaranteed in the Kenyan constitution. And I want to tell you, my sister, this year is a very different year. The voting pattern is not the way it used to be. It is not about tribes so much. It is about the policies and the ideologies that these people have. We used to have this tribe and was associated with this tribe, but this time around, you find this the Kenya Kwanza. It has got all the face of Kenya. You have Luos inside who are supposed to be in Azimio. You have all these, and they are very well perfect. So even thinking about the tribal clashes that we used to experience some years back, this time around it is not there.
All right.
You see, Saf, allow me to disagree with him and agree with him at the same time.
How is that going to work? Go ahead.
He has said that Rift Valley is going to vote as a block 100% to the last man for William Ruto.
Yeah.
Why are they doing that? Because he is one of them. Okay, he has the political backing because one of their sons is running for the highest office. But I also want to remind you that Rift Valley does not just belong to the Kalenjins. We have Kikuyus there, we have Kisis there, we have other tribes there. And politics is about locality. All politics are local, and people look up to their political leader. The reason why people are voting for William Ruto to the last man in terms of the region he comes from the Kalenjins is because they know he has the high chances of, and even numbers don't lie. If you look at the last voters registration that was done by IBC the other day, Rift Valley was the highest to record the newest numbers of voters. Why? Because people look up to their leaders. Politics is about region and your regional leaders. There are Kikuyus there who are waiting for Uhuru's direction. There are Kisis there who are waiting for their political leaders' direction. And so I was looking at projections, by the way, which might be 100% accurate. If William Ruto is going to get, it is projected that William Ruto is going to get about between 70 to 75 of the votes in Rift Valley, because we cannot continue telling people if the constitution cannot guarantee you your safety, that you're voting out of fear, then we are going to be slaves of fear in this country. There are people who will vote where Uhuru will say yet they in Rift Valley because they are Kikuyus outside fear. They will say whatever happens, happens. And that is politics for you. It is not about to change.
Let me finish my
I want to move this forward.
Let me remind you, Willie. Rift Valley is not voting for Ruto because he's a Kalenjin. Rift Valley is voting for Ruto because he's the right candidate. Get it from me. And not only that, when you talk about those other tribes that are living in Rift Valley, they are among the people who are recommending that Ruto is the right person to lead this country. So in this case, it is not because he's a Kalenjin. It's not because he's ours.
That is settled.
And that is why when you go to when you go to Mount Kenya, when you go to these other Mombasa, when you go to these other places,
all right,
you find the
enough
most
about the DP. Enough about the DP. Let's be fair. Let's be fair in this argument. Let's look at Azimio La Umoja as well. I mean, we cannot talk about the DP the whole day. At least we've talked about him and his, the mathematics he has to calculate in his choice of a running mate. Let's look at Azimio La Umoja as well. Their candidates is Raila Odinga. What is it that is at stake here for this gentleman this is his 5th attempt to become the country's, to get to that top seat. What is it that is going to give him a winning formula? There's also a bit of calculation for him on this other side. I'll start with you, Willie, and also your thoughts about this, Dr. Rutich.
History never lies in politics. If you want to project where you're going, you must know where you're coming from. There has been 5+ million votes behind Raila in all the elections that he has had to vie. Nothing has changed much. And so we are saying Raila has a block of 5 million votes. As Raila, not even with Azimio, not with the other affiliated parties to Azimio, him as an individual, Raila has about 5 million votes, and that is solid, take it or leave it. And so when Azimio is coming in with now other affiliated parties, we are easily able to project that Raila is going to be the next president of this country because of the regional blocks. Raila understands politics. Raila has been locking blocks behind him. The other day he just locked to Kambani, 100% block behind him. Mombasa is his, even this Western Kenya, trust me, 70% is going to vote for Raila. Take that. We can even bet here, by the way. And so Raila understands the politics. He's an enigma, and that gives him an experience that William Ruto does not have in this country. So
his choice of a running mate is not that crucial. That's what you're saying? That he can still stand, regardless of who he opts for as a running mate. That's what you're saying?
For Raila, it is not that crucial, but it would be an added advantage if he got someone from Mount Kenya, because remember, he has experienced a rejection from Mount Kenya for the longest time, for whatever reasons. And so if he picks one of them, and then he has the support of Uhuru Kenyatta, who is a son in Mount Kenya, then he's likely to get 50% of the for 4 million votes for himself. And so we are looking at Raila winning this election with about 8 to 9 million votes. That is real-time numbers.
8 million votes, Dr.
Yes.
Rutich.
I think
real-time numbers.
Yes, no, maybe?
I'm of a different view. Raila, of course, I totally agree with Willie that Raila has a home in most parts of the Republic of Kenya. He has a home. When you go to Mombasa, he has a home. When you go to come even to Rift Valley, my hometown, he has a home. In this case, in this running to this whatever, if you were talking about the time when Raila was Kenya. I mean, you were talking about the NASA team, which was very strong. You can sum up that one to be 5 million. But of course, without NASA being intact the way it was. And you saw, Willie, you must also understand that Ruto was not in Western, Jubilee was not in Western by that time. Jubilee was not in Mombasa. Jubilee was not in, even Ukambani, it was just a sizable. So in this case, Ruto has made inroads to all these areas. You talk of Mombasa, Ruto is there. You talk, I mean, the coast province. You talk of Northeastern is there. You talk about Rift Valley is home. You could talk about Central, it's home. Now, when you tell me that you have 5 million votes quite intact for Right Honorable Raila Odinga, I don't know where you are all, I mean, you are getting, but of course, I can totally, but I can also totally, I can agree with you. There's something that I can agree with you. Raila, yes, he may get those votes, but to get the winning vote, I mean, I'm foreseeing a situation, madam, that Ruto will win with 1.2, 1.3 million votes against Raila, and that is a fact. And
that's
you take
like
it to
the
bank.
range.
That is the range
1.2,
1.3
projection, yes.
Yeah, that is my projection.
I'm interested. I just want to know where you guys are getting.
Let me
these
tell you
numbers.
where these numbers are coming
I mean,
from.
we still, how many months to the general election? And a lot is supposed to be happening in between.
Less than 5. I will tell you where my numbers are coming from. We will review history and real-time numbers and blocks, okay? You've spoken about NASA. NASA was Raila, was Kalonzo, Musalia, and Wetangula.
Yeah.
Okay? One time, Musalia thought he had the numbers to make him president, and he ran for the highest office in this country. How many votes did he get from his backyard, his very own people? 400,000 votes only. So if Musalia is not in Azimio, he has gone with his 400. Let's say something has happened, there is a miracle. Let's give him, for the benefits of doubt, we give him even up to 500,000 votes. That is what left with him, and he took to Kenya Kwanza. But otherwise, the solid block for Raila in Western remains solidified with or without Musalia, because he just commands 400. You are your numbers. You are your numbers in politics, and that is why. What are you bringing on the table?
Where?
And how do you bring on the table? You say, I have vied, I vied, this is what I got. You cannot bargain and say, because I'm the kingpin. Western Kenya does not have a kingpin, and that is why Musalia and Wetangula, they are like political twins, where one is, the other one has to automatically be there to try and see whether they will solidify the votes, which they have not been able to do.
Something that Dr. Rotich also brought out, you've talked about Musalia Mudavadi, but also the inroads that the Deputy President William Ruto might have made between then and now. Are those also something that you're looking at?
That's a very good question, Saf. Let me tell you. In 2013 and 2017, when William Ruto was working with Uhuru, we keep saying that it is Ruto who made Uhuru president. But I want to tell you, it is the other way around. It was President Uhuru who made Ruto the deputy president of this country. People keep saying, oh, he crisscrossed this whole country. He was doing 5 meetings in a day. Why was Uhuru going to do 5 meetings in a day or 10 meetings in a day like William Ruto, when Uhuru had a solid block of 6 million votes, while Ruto just commanded 2-point-something million from Rift Valley? And the day of voting, that is where the rubber meets the road. That's when we separate the pros from the con. Irrespective of the many meetings he made across this country, 10, 20 meetings in a day, the day people voted, then that's when people realized all politics is local. It did not matter how many meetings he did in a day, but the day people voted for where their regional leaders were. And so nothing has changed. He may have campaigned for the last 4 years, but the day of voting, all politics is local. Let me finish, my brother. The day of voting in August 9th, it does not matter how much he has crisscrossed this country.
Before you come in, honestly speaking, you don't feel like the deputy president has made inroads in these regions you're citing?
He has done his part, and again, he has been working with political greenhorns, first-time MPs. That is a fact, and so they do not command a lot of experience in. These are people who are excited by road shows, campaigns. That is not how politics work. Politics is actual numbers, and if you're able to understand the metrics of locking blocks behind you, you are not carried by the excitement of road shows.
You've said your portion. Allow Dr. Rotich to
I think, Willie, let us always be very
he has tried his level best.
Even when you are not for the side, I think it is always good to
I just gave you political science.
It is always good to shame the devil and speak the truth.
That's political science, my brother.
And the fact, let me tell you, if there is anything that His Excellency the Deputy President has ever done in this country, he has played a key role. He played a key role in making Raila who he became, the Prime Minister of the Republic of Kenya.
It is on the...
Listen.
Raila made him.
Listen. And then number two, His Excellency the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, when he was branded as a project, he was with Ruto, and they mapped it out. So when their time came, Ruto himself went round to every corner of the Republic of Kenya, selling His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta, and he knows. And even when he confessed the other day, remember me, Your Excellency.
What
you know, this is what
the
I
day
did.
of voting? He crisscrossed. But how did people vote? We can look at the actual numbers. You can even put the actual numbers of 2013 and 2017.
Let me remind you. Let me remind you one thing, Willie. Let me remind you one thing. Ruto never campaigned just to have the only people of Rift Valley supporting His Excellency the President. He campaigned throughout the Republic of Kenya. All the votes, Mahali Ali Kanyaka, wherever he stepped in, he created votes for His Excellency the President.
People vote? It narrows down to how did the people vote. Look at the actual numbers. What made Uhuru president and Ruto deputy president is the Rift Valley bloc and the Mount Kenya bloc. And if for the most assured way for William Ruto to be president is
that is where I want you to take us.
Yes. The most assured way for William Ruto to be president is get what made Uhuru president. What did make Uhuru president? Rift Valley bloc and Mount Kenya bloc. Then if he's able to solidify those two blocks,
I think,
then we can begin to say,
I think Willie has helped me.
Raila has a worthy competitor. But from where I'm seated, it doesn't look like that.
For sure, Willie has helped me. You have helped me, my brother.
I am glad.
You have helped me. Why I'm saying you have helped me?
Yes.
As we are talking today, Mount Kenya is intact. 100% intact. For His Excellency the Deputy President. Number two, I know you are from there.
Yes.
I'm also from there. Number two, when you talk about Rift Valley, it is voting as a block. In fact, the starting point of His Excellency the Deputy President is roughly 6-7 million. The starting point. And then you can now talk about these others.
Where you get these numbers from?
I'm also wondering.
You can also talk about the
But then again, gentlemen, let's do this. Let's do this, because this presidency looks like it's something that we cannot complete today. It's really, really interesting where you're getting the numbers. You're almost even just telling us who is going to be the next president. I will not even allow you to go there. I will not even allow you to go there. Okay, so let's leave the presidency there, because we seem to be having the numbers on the table this morning.
Imaginary numbers for you.
Let's look at the other seats. We are looking at a season where we're going to be having political party nominations. And there's a date that has been set by the Registrar of Political Parties, the 26th of March. This coming Saturday. That in case you have any ambition, you have any interest in vying, by Saturday you're supposed to have settled in a political party that you will use as your vehicle to vie for that particular position. This list is going to be taken to IEBC, I believe, around 9th of April. That will set the pace for the nomination process, which many are really looking forward to, especially considering these coalition agreements. I'm looking at certain areas where there's going to be a lot of headache in terms of agreeing on who is going to carry the flag for these specific parties. I'm looking at Nairobi, the gubernatorial race, for example, that has attracted different candidates within a political coalition. For example, let me just take our viewers through what is happening in Nairobi. Nairobi, for example, on the Azimio side, we have Westlands MP Tim Wanyonyi, Nairobi current Governor Anne Kananu, we have businesswoman Anne Kagure, and the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry President Richard Ngatia, all in the Azimio wing. We have Kenya Kwanza, where we have Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja and former Starehe Member of Parliament Margaret Wanjiru, all in the Kenya Kwanza Alliance. I will take you to Kisii, I can take you to Kiambu and cite, this quagmire that is there. how should we, what are some of the likely scenarios we are going to witness in this nomination process, bearing in mind these agreements? Let me begin with you, Dr. Rotich.
I think, my sister, the amendment bill that pronounced that made that disallowed the hoping from one party to another, actually something that is going to solve a big problem, especially for the IPC. You see, people, after every nomination, somebody runs from his own party to independent, something that has brought a lot of problems. Instead of reducing the number of contestants, those who will be appearing in the list in the last election, we are finding that they are all filing up in the list of the independent candidate. Yeah. And I think that is, to me, that is the most modern thing. And of course, having the deadline of the 26th of March, that for those people who would have wished to join this party or the other party, I think it is a very healthy thing. I was looking at the candidates who will be contesting through Jubilee Party. They have also given, they have been given or rather promised some goodies, expanded more, so they will be campaign for them. Mean some money they will be given for campaign. And in this case, the Jubilee is trying to woo the numbers into their own docket so that they can contest and maybe mobilize their parties, which will finally end up in Asimio. But you see, when we are talking about this nomination, we are looking at the final date of the election itself. Because those who will have contested and won in these different parties, they will stick to their parties to the end. And in this case, I find it to be very healthy, even though it is very hectic. Because during nomination is a very hectic exercise. And it is marked with a lot of corruption and so many other things.
No wonder I'm asking, what are we looking at? Is it going to be a smooth sail?
It is not. Yeah. It is not. It has never been.
Especially the coalition factor
the cost of running a genuine election, my sister, is something very, 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 very. It's very expensive. It's very expensive. Talk about parties. How many parties are able to manage an election and come up with credible results? There are quite very few. Number two, even you have had the Asimio, they were proposing that they will be doing they will be assessing their available candidates to see who is more sound or who is more viable on the ground, who is commanding a lot of whatever, so that they can be given the ticket. By them, they are trying to reduce the disagreements that may actually arise as a result of this disorganized election process. So in this case, it is not going to be very smooth.
It's not going to be a walk in the park. Have we gotten to that level of trust, Willie, that as a coalition, there can be that negotiated democracy to allow a candidate who is perceived to be popular in a certain region to be the flag bearer of, say, a seat like for governor, for example. And this is a coalition we are talking about, not a political party.
First, we're in agreement that this election is between Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. Any other party that will not be affiliated to either of that political coalition will have a very hard time, because this is the battle of titans. And so what happens is it depends with how skillful and how experienced the leader of the coalition is. Remember, these are new things that are happening. These are an election like we have never seen before. And so what is going to happen, in my thinking, there will be a lot of negotiated democracy, and there will be a lot of back and forths with the aspirants trying to prove I'm the people's favorite there. And so they need to come up with methods to make sure that you as a Daktari, you are the best suited candidate, maybe, let's say, for Nairobi. Because Azimio wants to take Nairobi, supposing they make the next government. Kenya Kwanza want to take Nairobi if they take the next government. And so what they will do, they will make sure everything within their possible means and ways of politics, that they pick the best candidate to face the best from the other side. And so they need to come up with mechanisms that will make sure that every other aspirant who is eyeing that seat is very comfortable with the decisions that these coalitions have made. If that doesn't work out, then they can all battle it at the nomination. No, this is the problem. Nominations are not IBC affairs, they are party affairs. Yes. What if there is a preferred candidate in the coalition than whoever is popular, then what happens?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you afford to have these other people who are running for that position, who have felt that they have been shortchanged, running to the other side, and now you create enemies that were working for you, who are powerful in their own ways, fighting you? And so there is going to be a lot of negotiated democracy, so many closed doors meeting, just for people to prove that this is the right candidate for this county.
That luxury of time?
I think my sister.
Now this is what happens. If I am running for Nairobi, and he's running for Nairobi, and I feel I'm the best suited candidate, and he feels the same way, we can be given the option to battle it out, okay? But now, if I feel the party or the coalition is picking him for the obvious reasons, because I said the other day here, no affiliation is going to deal with jokers if you don't have the financial muscles and if you don't have the real numbers on ground. So it is also very good for you to say, yes, I will step down for this person, but what is it in for me? So there are people who are just there to create opportunities for themselves. They know they will not get the seat, but if they continue being adamant,
they can have something to negotiate.
They can have something to negotiate.
Bargaining power.
They can have a bargaining power. And so they will be told, we will make you the assistant minister of water, just support this person. And that is politics, and that is how politics work.
You bring out the realities. That's the reality on the ground. Let me take you through the Kisii scenario, for example. We had Senator Sam Ongeri, the woman representative Jane Ongera, Dagoretti North Member of Parliament Simba Arati, and Deputy Governor Joash Maangi, all were eyeing the ODM party ticket because it is perceived to be the powerful party in that particular region. Yes. But what has happened in the last few days and the last few weeks, we've seen Senator Sam Ongeri decamping to DAPK, citing some grievances under the ODM party. Maangi defected to UDA, and we've seen there's the other Jubilee aspirant, Chris Obure, also wanting to be governor. A lot of, moving here, moving there, and citing grievances here, there. Are we likely to see a lot of this? Because you really banked on trust.
The issue at hand, my sister, is about getting time to campaign until the last. When we shall be voting during the final election that will be managed by the IEPC, they will not be looking about the parties. They will be looking at you as a person. So it will give you a better opportunity to defend yourself, because there is also that wave that the party carries. You talk about, if you are like now in Rift Valley, if you are not coming from the UDA, you will not stand any chance to win. But instead of now people decamping to other parties, they see there is a more risk, because they would rather go for independent candidates. That's why a majority of them, if you go to Rift Valley today as we are talking, so many have gone to independent because of the one party direction, that is UDA. If you are not in UDA, you are nowhere. So it is better that you are not identified with any party. And then when you are also fighting as an independent candidate, you get somebody is having a photograph of the running mate. I mean, not actually the running mate, but the person who is actually contesting for the president. You see an independent candidate having His Excellency the Deputy President. I'm at the independent candidate having the picture of Right Honorable Raila Odinga. What is key to them is that with this election that we have now, with a very popular party, many people will be pressed out of the way. So what Sam Ongeri did was that so long as Tuko Asimio, I have no problem being in any other party. And even he will not brush shoulders with ODM, because they know this is our system. From the other side. So and
also what you cited, an independent candidate holding a picture of a certain already candidate, showing that you're an independent candidate affiliated to Azimio or an independent candidate affiliated to Kenya Kwanza. Is it even right?
And maybe to add
or it's just politics of survival?
To add on that, my sister, you see, when you look at the parties,
how are you independent
parties in Kenya,
how independent are you?
The parties in Kenya are actually more of I mean, it is not they are yet to be institutionalized. We are yet to see the party as a party. But you see, as at now, we see a party as a person. If you now look at the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, you can easily think about the Asimio. You can easily think about the ODM. So if it is not that association, that party will not exist. So to the UDA and Ruto. So in this case, what is going to happen actually in future is that since we are still scrambling to know the meaning and the right place of our parties in this republic, we are still going to associate ourselves or align ourselves to the individuals.
Whether you're independent or not.
Yeah, even I'm independent now, I must put a picture of Ruto to make me more closer to him and to put also the line straight.
But is it right, Willie?
No, it is not
how
right.
How independent is that independence?
It is not
for
right.
lack of a better term.
When you are going as an independent candidate, it means that you do not believe in this party and you don't believe in this party. You believe in people's sobriety to vote. Okay? And so if people are not sober enough and people are carried by waves, then you will be there fighting all alone. Now, there are so many gray areas, by the way, even with these coalitions. There's so many unforeseen and gray areas even in these coalitions. Having someone like Sam Ongeri running with a DAP ticket, as long as it's affiliated with Raila, not ODM, okay? And remember, ODM will still front a governor, a gubernatorial candidate in that very same place. And so most of these candidates, what they are avoiding is something called the nomination. They are, especially these well-experienced politicians, they are avoiding nominations. Actually, most of the greenhorn politicians are the people who are saying, oh, it's going to be free and fair, we can trust this party. But it's never a free and a fair competition when it comes to nominations, because these are party affairs. And so it depends with how good of a criminal you are to take that ticket.
I really...
Maybe let me finish my point. You could be a criminal. I have been there. I've ran 2 elections, by the way. I know what I am talking about. Someone will see as if they are losing, and then they will come with goons, okay, and they will scare everybody out of the classrooms, and they will run. Other people will go to the party headquarters and purchase that certificate. These things happen. These things are not new.
So if this was happening within one political party in their nomination process. I'm looking at that now, that umbrella nomination process that brings on board 20 or how many plus political parties trying to negotiate for the few seats that are available.
Look at what has happened, Serfine.
At?
The most experienced politicians have created their own parties. And they are running for various positions with their own parties so that they can have a direct nomination, just to make sure they get to the ballot, such that no one is determining my destiny, political destiny.
The Chama cha Kazi, Service Party.
Exactly, Service Party, exactly. All of them are running because, remember, historically, history does not lie, and you will be a fool to ignore history. All these politicians know what happens, and so they do not want anybody making a decision on their political career somewhere seated in the office by subjecting them to nominations. And so what is happening right now, there is also so much green and gray area even with these party leaders and the candidates who are vying on these coalitions. Because what happens if Sam Ongeri is the people's favorite, okay, and then ODM has picked up an aspirant, a candidate for that particular position, and then ODM, a strong party, is defeated by a well-experienced politician like Sam Ongeri. Where does that leave UDA? So everybody, kila mtu anaangalia hivi sasa. Now what happens? Because there's so much gray area. And the wise politicians, if they are able to see those gray areas, every decision they will make between now and Friday, because this week is when there is going to be...
Crucial.
This is very crucial for so many politicians.
The few days that are coming before Saturday.
Exactly,
it's very crucial days.
And so for every aspirant who is interested with any political seat, this is their week to either make it or break it.
Or break it.
Yes.
Do we stand a chance of seeing the local politics having any bearing on the national politics past, the nomination process?
You see,
that one is solid.
After nomination, you see, these people are running on having an eye on their individual candidate at the top. So all the impact that the national candidate has is up to the grassroots. So in that case, that is why they are actually talking so hard that don't run away after this nomination. There are a lot of things that we have for you. And there's another problem that, of course, that has... in any organization, you cannot run without money. And some of these, there are some characters who have really pumped a lot of money into these parties. And they are contesting in some places. So they feel they have a right to be bigged. So in that case, that is why my brother here was saying that some of them may actually go for direct ticketing, if that is what we can say. But of course, they are also fearing for a fallout. In the event that you give an individual who may not be popular on the ground, people will shy away. And you see, during the final election, it will not matter whether you are Azimio, whether you are UDA, whether you are... Because they will not be doing election as per the parties. People can run away from you, literally. And even those who may have been in UDA going for Azimio, voting for Right Honorable Raila Odinga, and those who may have been with Right Honorable Raila during the real election, they may go to Kenya Kwanza, the deputy president. So in this case, they have to be very careful. Everything that you do at the national level must necessarily affect or infect the local level.
Yeah, true. The movement will still continue. We've seen it even after the elections. There's still that exodus and exits and entries from one political
There will be.
Some sightings say, oh, I saw this, there were red flags, I spoke about them, no one took them serious, and so you guys are not even worthy leading this country, I'm going to the other side. And just the other day you saw the a register of political parties, they passed a bill and they said that if there is no party hopping, okay, so there is no window of chance. If you are defeated at UDA nominations, you cannot hope go to another party. It won't happen. Even you can't. You cannot be defeated from the party you were previously in and run as an independent candidate. Why?
So it's done for you.
It's tough for you because they want to contain anybody, irrespective of how nominations are. They want to contain you so that kama utasikia uchungu, your nominations has not been free and fair. You will have to vumilia that pain and support that party.
What if those concerns are genuine? You've both cited how murky our nomination process is, and how, you know, there are several gaps that can be exploited.
They will tell you the party does not need you. You need the party more than it needs you.
What if, you know, a genuine candidate was locked out for whatever reason,
what's happening at the moment,
and that window has been also closed for that party?
That's why I do not agree with that law.
For those parties who have the muscle of getting the arbitrators, they will always engage arbitrators, and then they may have a repeated election or something like that. But of course, what is actually dictating the whole process is the time frame between now and the election. How are we going to, how long are we going to take during the arbitration? So that is a knacky thing. So I think what they may actually discuss, they may actually, they do a lot of horse trading. Oh, this is what we are going to reward you in the event that you do. Because what the parties will be fighting for is to make sure that their parties don't run away during the real election. Because that one, if I know I was rigged out, and I've explained to the higher superiors that I was rigged out, and they don't seem to be listening, I'll go to the other side of the world. So in this case, that is what most of these parties will be.
Or become an independent.
Yeah.
They want
you will not go independent. During the real election, you will not only vote for the independent, you will vote for your party. Because that one will translate to your party president. So, everything that is, our center of interest from the grassroots is the person who is contesting as the president. So whatever you do here, it doesn't matter so much. But in the final end, what these presidential candidates would wish to see is that they keep their people intact in their line.
This is out of context, but it's very important for me to say, Saf, the president has laid some very nice economic foundations for this country. And so to take this nation to the next level, we need very brilliant minds to do that. And so any politician who is going to go through this process right now, between now and August, and they come out victorious on the other side, having gone through all those quagmires and the gray areas, then those are the leaders that deserve to lead this nation. Because there is a lot of darkness, there is a lot of gray area, and so only the bright minds will be able to
really understand what's happening in between. As you help him, we've run out of time for this conversation. So I will utilize that 1 minute you help Willie as you give us your parting shot, Dr.
I think Willie, as what we have said, what I want to remind you, Willie, is that the blueprint, the real plan that it was established in 2013, it was established by two people, His Excellency the President and his deputy. And that is the plan that has worked to today. Even during the time when His Excellency the Deputy President was away, the same blueprint was implemented. So I can be very categorical that the person who can easily take this mantle to the next level is the person who coined up the current blueprint. That is the Deputy President. And if Kenyans will really support this guy, I think he will be the right candidate to proceed from where Uhuru actually live. And maybe that is my take. Kenyans will see and they will find themselves in their own level.
Saf, I really like the way guys from Kenya Kwanza associate William Ruto with all the successes of the government and disassociate themselves with the downfalls of the government. What I would like to say is that we have a country after August. We have a country after the nomination.
And we shall have a president.
And we will have a president, okay? The most important thing is be your brother's keeper. That will be my message since now up to August in every parting shot. Let us maintain peace. Let us maintain law. Let us remember that in case of anything, I will not call Raila to help me, the man I'm supporting for presidency.
That's very
the person I can call in an instant is my brother here. And so Rotich. And so we do not have to fight over these guys. I am at liberty to support whoever I want to support. You are at liberty to support whoever. It's a competition which will come to an end.
Yeah, that's a very powerful way of ending it. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for creating time. Of course, we'll always be picking this up and taking it a notch higher as we stay on the road to the 2022 general election. I've been having this sit down with Dr. Joseph Rotich, political analyst, and of course Willie Kamau, also political analyst, as we were looking at issues shaping the campaign trail in the country this morning. We are going to be crossing over to the other side in just a bit as we talk about forest conservation. I'll be engaging John Kioli, he's the CEO, Green Africa Foundation, and also Paul Gasheru, Species and Sites Manager at Nature Kenya. That coming up after this break. To stay with us for that and much more.
Thank you.
Do you have a news story to share with KBC? Get in touch swiftly on email news@kbc.co.ke or call 0723-892-654 or 0734-780-124.
To get control your thinking as your skiza tune, dial *811*961#.
Did you know that you have complete control over everything that surrounds you? Yes, fully control over all that comes out of the seas, the earth, and the universe. That control is your thinking. Good thoughts bear good fruits, but bad thoughts will always bear bad fruits. Control your thinking.
To get control your thinking as your skiza tune, dial *811*961#. *811*961#.
Mundos divididos por una sombra de traición.
Of course not. If she responds, it won't be a sincere love. The only thing she'll show you is a facade to cover the emptiness in her heart that she's feeling right now.
Elena, why do you look at me like that?
He sent me away.
He did what? I don't believe this, Mom. How could he do that to you? You're the only one willing to look after him.
Believe this.
Are you sure he didn't see you?
Believe me, this was no accident. Someone tried to kill me.
Lying heart.
Fue sembrando el veneno y la ambición.
What are you doing here? I'm wondering if you're too thick-skinned, or if it's true that you have no shame at all. I will not forgive you. I will destroy everything you have by hand.
Huh? Hey! Are you crazy? Your family would collapse if they knew about this.
What the hell is going on here? Where did you get the money? Did you go ask my dad for money?
Your dad? Huh.
Right, welcome back and thank you for staying with us. In case you're just joining us, this is News Check, a program that seeks to look at issues shaping the news as we dissect them and tell you what bearing they have for you and I. And of course, one of those issues today for us is environmental conservation. Remember, yesterday was World Forest Day and today we mark the World Water Day. So we just chose on this platform to also talk about how much we've done as a country in terms of preserving and conserving our forests, and also talking about issues to do with climate change and the progress we are making as a country. What are some of the mistakes? What are some of the things that we have gotten right, and how do we move forward? So that is what we want to do in the next 1 hour or so with my panel this morning. I'll just like to bring them on board and introduce them. I'll start with the gentleman on my far left there. His name is Paul Gasheru. He's a species and sites manager at Nature Kenya. Thank you, Paul, for creating time.
Thank you for having us.
And of course, we also have John Kioli. John is the CEO, Green Africa Foundation. He's also the chairperson of the Kenya Climate Change Working Group. Thank you so much, John, for creating time.
Thank you.
Maybe just in the interest of us also knowing more about your mandate and what you do, I'd like to open this conversation by giving you both a chance to tell us a bit more about your organizations and what are some of the key issues that you're tasked to look at. I'll start with you, Mr. Gasheru.
Thank you very much, Serfine. And my name is Paul Gasheru, and I work at Nature Kenya as a Species and Sites Program Manager. Nature Kenya is one of the oldest societies in Africa, founded in 1909. We also call the East Africa Natural History Society. We are based at the Nairobi Museum. The society founded the museum movement in 1920 and handed over to the government. And we are a civil society organization with a core mandate or a mission to connect people with nature. And with that philosophy, we are aiming towards saving species and looking at critical endangered species, with trigger species mainly on birds, saving their sites. Those are the habitats that the animals are living in, like forests and wetlands, among other habitats that we have in the country. Promoting ecological sustainability, where we are working with government and to promote appropriate policy frameworks that would support conservation of these species and their habitats, and empowering local community, so that then we can have the local communities are the ones who are living within these lands, and therefore providing them with a platform towards conserving these sites. And with doing so, we work within 67 sites in Kenya, which are called key biodiversity areas, which include places like Nairobi National Park, which are protected, for example, places which are not protected like Dakacha Woodland, which is in Kilifi County, and other places which are in between, which are in private lands like the Kinango Plateau. So it's our work cuts across the entire landscape in the country and within those 67 sites in our country.
67 sites.
Yes.
Wow. I like how people-centered your initiative is, bringing people on board and actually making them feel like they're part and parcel of this.
Yes.
And also, John, I know in your mandate you work very closely also with the government.
Yes.
Just tell us a bit more about yourself also.
Thank
and
you.
Some of the initiatives that you're currently working on.
Yes, thank you, Serfine. The Kenya Climate Change Working Group has 3 broad areas. Our mandate is to bring civil society organizations working specifically on issues around climate change together. The second thing that we look at is what are those policies, what are those legislative instruments around issues of climate change, around issues of energy access, and broadly climate change and energy and issues around forestry that need some attention. One of the biggest milestones we had was to draft, to lobby, and to make sure that the Climate Change Act of 2016 was enacted in May of 2016. That law is the omnibus that conducts issues around climate change in the country now. It has also been mirrored by most of the counties now to have county-specific legislations around climate change, around the county climate change fund, and these are vehicles which are carrying a lot of weight around climate change. The other thing that we do as a Green Africa Foundation, we have the concept, which is now relevant to our topic today, of plant your age. We drive the mission of planting trees. But sometimes it's difficult to inculcate issues of tree growing unless you attach it to something.
Mm-hmm.
So if your birthday, like me today, I'm around 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
You believe that? So I'll plant
I was waiting
20
for that
years,
when I saw
I'll
what
plant,
you did.
or I'll grow 20 trees. My wife will grow around another 40 trees,
Mm-hmm.
and then the other person will grow in my family. So it's a clarion call that we have seen it work. Corporates now, if they are 20 years, they are calling upon their workers, their staff to also plant according to a theme that they have chosen. So we have a lot of trees. Annually, more than 6 billion trees are cut annually. That means that is equivalent to the land in Iceland. Every year, hectares are cut down.
That is in Kenya alone?
No,
or?
globally.
Globally. Uh-huh.
What that means is that we need to replace those trees like yesterday. So we came up with that clarion call of plant your trees, plant your age, so that we are able to grow trees, we are able to sustain, we are able to send the message, and the message is surprisingly being taken by the youth more than the elderly.
Yeah. I also like how the same thing cuts across, making it people-centered, making them feel like they're part and parcel. Something connects them to whatever initiative they're being called upon to do. I'd like to explore why this is important. You know, as your organization, Nature Kenya, why did you find that aspect of bringing people on board important? What value add, you know, why are you looking at?
You know, overall, in the landscape, the people who, everything that is nature has people are connected to the nature. And within the 67 sites that I've mentioned that we are working in, we found that there is no way that we can work with government to protect or to support conservation of those sites, because it's like a top-down type of system, and that does not work, because using guns and using regulations and enforcement does not seem to derive or bring back results that which would be important for conservation of those sites. So working with the local community who are based on their land and showing the importance of their land to them have yielded better fruits than working on the top-down systems. So for example, we work in Kinango Plateau, and in Kinango Plateau we have one endemic bird, a species which is only found in Kinangop and nowhere else in the world. It's called the Sharp's longclaw. And this bird requires the grassland. You know, Kinangop is highland, good grassland. And working with the local community, they saw the importance of this species, because then there were incentives provided. For example, providing sheep, so that then they can start maintaining the grassland, and the sheep, they're able to get wool out of it. So by having sheep and having wool and adding value of the wool on the grassroots, they can see the connection between their livelihoods and the grasslands that they are maintaining within the landscape. And with this framework, we see that there are better results which are yielded by getting the conservation results that we look for. So our mission, which is connect people with nature for a sustainable future, it's people are all in the center of our work. And therefore, within that framework, we work with different groups, local community groups. We call them site support groups across 25 sites at the moment. And then also trying to scale it up to have other community groups across the around 37 sites that we have at the moment. So, as you say, people are center of all this. And that's a framework that we work, and that's why in our core mandate and the strategy that we have is local empowerment. Local empowerment, that's it, connecting the people with nature through local empowerment and providing incentives for it.
Connecting people with nature for a sustainable future.
Correct.
Wow. I'd like to ask you the same question, but you give us the other side of it. What do you think has been the biggest contributor to the disconnect that we are now trying to connect, the people and nature? What do you think has led to the gap in between?
One of the key things I want to draw your attention is poverty. Poverty is a key driver also to issues of climate change. In Kenya, about 84% of the charcoal that is charcoaled in the rural area ends up in urban areas, Nairobi being the biggest culprit. You can imagine somebody is charcoaling in Kitui, in Narok, in Kwale, in Taita, and these are the hotspots in Baringo, and all that charcoal comes to Nairobi. These people end up paying around, they are paid around $3 or 300 shillings a sack.
Yeah.
When we buy the charcoal here in Nairobi, it turns up to around 2,500. What that means is that that person, for him or her to emancipate himself from poverty, he has to make so many sacks to be able to remove himself from that. So that means there will be appetite for cutting trees. So this is one of the challenges that we are seeing, that there is poverty. We need to be alive to that, and we need now to look at what can we do as a country. Our country relies on more than 80% on biomass energy, meaning that whatever we do with renewable energy, we still have 80% of us using either charcoal, using firewood, and all this contributes to some sort of damage to the environment. So what we've done as an organization is to look at it from the flip side, from the efficiency side and renewable side. On the efficiency side, we look at how can we do charcoaling in an efficient way. One of the key things is to use charcoal kilns which are efficient, which have a recovery of about 30%. Right now, the recovery, if you do charcoaling, you get only about 10% to 12%. So if you do in a proper way, that the Ministry of Forestry and Environment has come up with some protocols under the charcoal rules and regulations. If you do proper charcoaling, if you tell us where you are doing the charcoaling, because we also want to follow, has environmental impact assessment been done where you are doing the charcoaling? And are you doing it sustainably? Because one of the key things of the theme of this year, this Forestry Day, is there are two key things there. There is production and sustainability. Sustainability needs to be inculcated. One, by legislative. Two, by advocacy. Because also these people who are doing charcoaling, they can sell solar lanterns, for instance. They can do poultry farming. They can do other alternative livelihoods. But who is there? Which politician is there
to tell them?
To give them space. Because we're also saying this year, climate change will be an agenda for election. Because we have seen that attention is not being paid to issues of climate change. So we put leaders who will talk about climate change. We put MPs, we put a president, we put senator, we put a governor who will pay attention to issues of climate change.
Because these are issues that are close to our
they are alive
hearts.
to us.
I mean, if you look at what is happening, and as you were marking the World Forestry Day yesterday, today we are marking the World Water Day. I'll begin with yesterday. What are some of the fundamental issues that we are looking at in terms of challenges that urgently need to be addressed when it comes to forest conservation in this country? Let me just stick to you for a bit, and also I'd like your input, Gasheru.
Thank you very much. We must ask ourselves, what do forests give us? One, forests give us food. Two, they give us shelter. What we are sitting on, the roofs on our head, and almost everything around us is wooden. It comes from the forest. Number three, most of the medicine that I know have some origin around the forestry. Number five, most of us don't realize, but these trees are the industries of oxygen. So when you are planting trees, you're actually planting oxygen. Number six, we know that forests are the biggest abatement of carbon dioxide, meaning that there is no other comparison in the world that can take up carbon dioxide as trees can take up. So we must look at how can we increase the uptake of this understanding to the people. And one of the things is to put a human face in the tree planting, in the tree growing. We must put some sense in our people that this tree is not only for the shade, for building. It has other accrued values that we must appreciate. And that's why we are saying, if we can also, encourage people to plant fruit trees, because then you'll see a quick return to your investment. At the same time, you will build up to the issues around forestry. And one of the things that we must realize is that as a country, in 2015, in 2021, we promised under the United Nations framework on climate change, we promised to cut down as a country 32% of our carbon emissions. That is equivalent to 143 million tons of carbon equivalent. Forestry is the biggest and the easiest abatement to cover that. So we must know that as a country, we also have those international promises we have done. And in 2016, it became part of our constitution because it is one of the multilateral instruments that our country entered into agreement. So we are not only doing this to our families, we are doing it to the whole country because we live in a small global village, whereas what happens in China affects Kenya. What happens in the US affects Kenya. So we must, first of all, appreciate what a tree can give you as a human being and look at other accrued values that we get through the growing and the sustainability of trees.
Gasheru, we've also talked about something fundamental about birds, and they find their homes mostly in these trees.
Correct.
Talk to us about other benefits that forests have for us, and this increased appetite for cutting down trees. How has it impacted your efforts?
Correct. So, in addition to what my colleague has said here, I think one key challenge that we face in the country is we have a disconnect between the economy, growth, demands, and the environment sector. So you find that a company which is based here in Nairobi, for example, a big company, a beverage company or a telecommunications company, whoever it is, they have no connection between themselves and the environment. In my understanding is that the environment is a foundation of our economic growth. So for example, take Mount Kenya as an example. Mount Kenya is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, is a key biodiversity area. We have endemic species, like now you have seen Bongo, we have endemic bird species that are found there. And Mount Kenya is one of the largest water catchment area for the country. It is a largest, it's a source of the Tana. Tana provides hydroelectric power generation, the power you're using in this studio. And therefore, KBC is a beneficiary of Mount Kenya because power is generated from the water coming from Mount Kenya. And therefore, providing that mainstreaming and having that connection between this business, which is in Nairobi, for example, and that resource, which is forest-based, is very critical so that then they can see our business, if we do not invest back to the same environment that is providing our business sustainability, we might lose overall at the end of it if we do not plow back resources to the environment. So there's that general disconnect between business and the environment, which we need to be able to connect the business with the environment. Then secondly, is that the people who are living around these areas that we call, which are important for our business, like Mount Kenya as an example, we take them as stewards that are people living, and we expect them, without us giving them resources, we expect them to protect that forest as volunteers. And therefore, you find it very difficult to provide volunteerism when there is poverty. So this person still needs to go to the forest, get firewood, and you're not providing alternative livelihood options for them to live for that person. So there is need to see that person who is living adjacent to these environmentally sensitive areas, key biodiversity areas, we need to see the connection and provide the incentives for them from the business perspective back to them to be able to preserve and promote sustainable conservation of those sites. So So by so doing, you'll find that yes, there's actual direct benefit, and people can start seeing, they can start connecting together, they can start connecting with the nature, even being based in Nairobi. Our tourism industry is wildlife based, and people come here to see wild Masai Mara. They need to go to Amboseli to see the lions and the elephants and the birds. The same case, you find that tourism is the third largest GDP contributor to our country. And you see overall, with that contribution of the tourism industry, it's still environment based, and therefore there's need to safeguard these places for the benefit of our economy. So we need to look at it in totality, not just looking at it just because we need to plant a tree, but we need to have the connection between our economy and our natural habitats, and how then they contribute overall to our economic growth. And so therefore
it comes from within.
It comes from within, and therefore we need to have policies that enable, incentivizes private sector to engage better, to contribute. Like we find examples from Costa Rica as an example. Private sector is fully engaged, and they are contributing direct money or direct resourcing to people living in the forest. And through a system called a Payment for Ecosystem Services scheme, for example. And those schemes have provided general incentives for nature-based conservation initiatives. So we need to connect business and the environment through policy, through incentivizing, whether tax rebates, I don't know what they can provide, so then they can start seeing their contribution to nature conservation.
All right, I'll come back to you so that you can tell us more about these practical ways in which such communities can be engaged, so that they feel like they're part and parcel of this, and they are, while at it, they're also making a livelihood out of that process. But before that, I'd just like to come back to you, John. We're talking about conserving the environment at a time when we have this very big goal. I don't know whether to say big or ambitious, depending on how you look at it. By 2030, 10% forest cover. How are we doing? How can you rate us in this journey?
We are still very far.
How much between 1 to 10%? Where are we?
I'll say our goal is quite ambitious. I don't have the accurate data, but I would say we are very far. The reason is, I think the approach is one-sided, that the communities, the government, and the biggest culprit is the government. The government is buying seedlings, then distributing to the communities. We need to shift. We need to shift even our mindset. A place like Marsabit, a place like Kitui, a place like Baringo, you go plant trees, you leave. Tomorrow there are goats, there are dictics, and they will browse on the trees, and that will be it. Yes, we had World Environment Day. Yes, we had all these days, and we planted trees and left. If these trees are not fenced, if these areas do not have water, it's work in futility. There is this theory of, instead of using all these monies to generate seedlings in a central place, why don't you pay me as a farmer for maintaining and growing trees? You come to my place, do a baseline, I have no trees. Tomorrow you can see trees, and you refund me the sustainability charge. Use the same funding that is being used by government to generate seedlings in one place, and then use trucks again to transport this. And then all that money that, I don't want to say corruption, but all that, sometimes you are even giving schools seedlings that they cannot even plant. So why can't we change the game and say, now we'll give you Kimani 20,000, because we have counted, and for the last 2 years we have maintained 20,000 seedlings. Every seedling will give you 1 shilling. That will be a motivation to me. That will be a reason for me to maintain the seedlings. That will be a proper use of resources. The other one is a place like Marsabit, a place like Tana River, Baringo, parts of Kitui. why can't you use that money for seedlings to just fence out the area and then let nature regenerate? Because nature also regenerates trees. And the biggest challenge is goats, animals, in the areas we want to grow trees. So even just fencing, using those resources we are pumping into seedlings. Can't we change our mind? We don't have to do what we've done many years and failed. Fence off the area, or look at Njeri, look at Wanja, look at Kimngetich. He has planted 10,000 trees. Give him 10,000. Try out, because there's some effort, and you have done a baseline. There was no seedling. Now there is seedling. He used some resources, because that is a person who has capacity. Why are you just donating seedlings to a school which has no tank? First, build a tank. It's just the issue of laptops thing of schools. You're bringing laptops, there's no electricity. Why can't you build a tank which can sustain the seedlings? I think we are using a lot on media, on show, that, oh, today we planted 10,000 seedlings. You actually planted, you didn't grow. So can we look at it from the flip side?
Underline, that's
flip
really
side,
nice.
and look at, can we do things differently for this country?
So you go beyond just planting.
Yes.
You ensure that you grow, and it has to be targeted. It has the intention is good, but the approach is where there are certain gaps that
and
need
the
to be
resources used. Are we doing it in a proper way? How can we step back and see how have we succeeded in this method? You change methods and see if you can redo it in a different way and succeed.
Maybe you'd have something to add on to that. The strategy we are using, we're looking at 10% by 2030. It's how many years? Just 8 years.
8 years. Actually, it's supposed to be achieved by 2022. The government changed and they said by 2022 we need to have achieved 10%.
Yeah, but we are here already.
It's very ambitious overall, and the ambition. It's good to be ambitious. Without ambition, you may not be able to move. With a good ambition, with a good target in the future, whether you achieve it or not, you'll have moved a number of steps towards it.
Absolutely.
So I think the core thing here with issues of increasing our tree cover or our tree cover, as it is termed, is the approaches that we are using. And as Nature Kenya, our approach which we are implementing within the landscape that we are working in is working with the local community, where the local communities are the ones producing the seedlings, and they know where they are going to plant those seedlings, right? So it's not as we don't bring the seedlings to them to go plant. The demands must be driven from bottom up. So it has to be driven from the grassroots for us to be able to engage. And with the aspect of growing trees, it's not just about moving that seedling from the tree nursery to the forest. It's also providing the continuous, post-planting management, whereby there is need for weeding, there's need for protection, and there's need for even replacing the dead trees. And therefore, by doing so, you find that the average cost of a seedling is not 15 shillings or 20 shillings that you'd go and buy from the tree nursery. An actual cost of a seedling costs between 70 shillings to 150 shillings. And if you're not able to provide that to the local community that you want to engage, there's no need of going to put in the money of just bringing a seedling to the forest. So you need to have seen the entire process to ensure that the tree is actually grown. And within our framework, we put a timeline of around 3 years from when the tree is actually put on the ground, post-planting management, which is at least 3 years, to ensure that the tree is a bit of a good size that is able to accommodate the pressures that might come from grazing and other things. So, and therefore, when you're going to invest in tree growing, you need to consider that the tree needs to be at least a minimum of 70 shillings to a maximum of around 150, according to what we have been able to calculate.
So shift from tree planting to tree growing. That's something also that is very important.
So when you go to a company and they want to grow 100,000 trees, we tell them you need to have 7 million Kenya shillings. Not 1.5 million shillings. You need to have 7 million shillings on the table to be able to grow the tree at a bare minimum.
How can a common mwananchi, what is it that they can do also to support the initiatives that the government is doing so that we can all attain this 10% forest cover by 2030? Are there things that in their personal space, in their individual way, they can be able to do to sort of consolidate the efforts that the government is trying to put in place?
They do have a role, and that's now come now to your own private person.
Yeah.
And within that small space that you own, there is need for now providing those different options, not just growing the tree for like the forestry tree, but providing a tree that will benefit the person at the household level. That would include fruit trees, for example. That would include agroforestry trees, which might provide firewood or options for different options for energy for the household. So those options need to be provided for the household. For example, like now, if you go to Kitui and Ukambani, mango trees are very critical for that landscape. You have seen what is happening in Makueni and what has been popularized about fruit growing and value addition. Why can you not encourage those farmers to have mango trees, which will provide incentives to them as they are also integrating with other farming activities? So at the farm level, there is need for those incentives to be provided for the farmer to participate in supporting the government in achieving the tree cover percentage that we need. And that's one thing that we have been promoting across the landscapes. Like fruit trees is one of the biggest, and it provides food and income for the household. So that's one way that the community can be engaged in supporting the government to achieve the 10% tree cover.
John, you're talking to us about Plant Your Age, that initiative. Talk to us more about it, and when did it start and how is it picking up, and probably are there other ways in which also you are engaging the common mwananchi in this course that you felt is practical and it's actually workable?
Thank you. Plant Your Age was an initiative that was, if there's an English word called catalysted, or Wangari Maathai was a catalyst. And the motivation was, what can we do as an organization to pick up from where Wangari Maathai left it? So we were looking for a very unique way of encouraging people to grow trees, and so much was on tree planting day and all this. So we came up through the founder of Green Africa Foundation, Dr. Isaac Alua, an initiative that then in 2013 was launched by His Excellency President Mwai Kibaki, the retired president of Kenya, and he launched it in Kitui. And it was very symbolic because we were looking at how can we do things differently. And the good thing was the uptake was overwhelming. We started with Nairobi County. They planted quite a number of trees which are growing in Central Park, in Nairobi Primary. We went to Kajiado County. We planted quite a number of trees. We went to Kiambu County in some schools there. We went to quite a number of counties. During the county governors meeting, devolution meeting in Makueni, it culminated to one of the biggest movement that was actually adopted by the county governors. That this is one unique way that can roll out a process which has always been complicated in tree growing. And one of the things we are always asking is, have the game done properly, have sustainability, because even when you're doing it for an institution, we have a checklist. Do you have water? Do you have a plan of sustainability? Are you just doing it for the media, then go away? So if that is the direction, then we pull out. But we want to move with organizations that are level-headed, organizations which can even do without media, because their vision is to do impact in the communities. Going back to the question of how the Mwananchi, the Wanjiko, can contribute. The Wanjiko can contribute, but Wanjiko needs assistance of the county governments. We know now there are technologies of cook stoves which are using less firewood. Instead of using, let's say, 10 kilos of firewood, we are now having cook stoves which are using like 3 kilos of firewood a day on average. That is around one tree. One tree, 3 years will give you like around 3 kilos. That means you cut down from using 3 trees to 1 tree, a fast growing tree. What we are looking at is, can we send a message? Can we advocate my grandmother, my mother, to use an improved jiko, which can use less trees? Because we are alive to that, we are still using firewood. As much as renewable energy
that's our reality.
Yes. The reality is that 80% of us are still doing it. I'm not sure, but I think even in State House, I suspect they are still using charcoal to do nyama choma.
Nyama choma,
okay?
True.
So I believe that we still have a long way to fade out even charcoal, even in the highest office, in the highest hotels. So as we transition, can we have those jikos which can use less charcoal? Can we have jikos which can use less firewood? That is one. Can we empower our communities to shift from charcoal to other, livelihood programs? Now we have programs around forest conservation, like keeping bees. There's a whole industry on apiculture. There's a whole industry which is untapped of honey. So can we shift attention from cutting trees to telling people and the government, I'm talking to the government of Kenya, can you give people beehives instead of all that money that is used in other things, so that I don't have a motivation of cutting trees? I can put my beehives there, I can sustain my family using those beehives, and I can move on because I can sell that and get the money that I was getting from charcoal. So we need the county governments to realize that these people who live in that county are your people. You are responsible for advocacy around that county. You are responsible for technology transfer which can sustain our people in your county. And that's why we are saying we want even parties, political parties which are talking to issues of environment. We want leaders who can talk to issues of climate change, because a lot is being wasted, or a lot of money is being taken to mitigate and adapt to climate change atrocities in this country. A lot of roads, a lot of industries, a lot of health sector. Now malaria is being talked about in Rift Valley. Before it wasn't, because there is climate change now. The temperatures have increased. Now mosquitoes can start traveling to Kitale, to Rift Valley. And that means climate change is real, and we need to do and to
something
pay attention.
about it.
Indeed. Yeah.
Do you think there's been enough political goodwill in addressing that issue of climate change? And you also cited that you were really pivotal in the coining of the Climate Change Act of 2016. How was the journey like?
It is not a beautiful journey. It is a journey that you are fighting, you are swimming against the gradient.
Yeah.
One is that there are beneficiaries of the status quo. There are beneficiaries in industries who don't want to change. There are beneficiaries of the status quo in terms of arrangements that were there before. So we had this crusade, and we noticed that you're talking about plastic paper, you're talking about this, so you are touching some areas that could even threaten your life. But we marshaled on, and we came up with the Climate Change Act of 2016. One, it came up with a fund, which now we can have climate change funding. Number two, it came up with the Climate Change Council. Number three, it came up with the Directorate of Climate Change. Number four, we also have the guidelines which have been given to counties to deal with issues of climate change. What I want to ask the government is to make sure that this act is active. There are some elements of this act which are not active. And because of time, we might not enumerate all. But I feel there are some sector of people who still believe in the act. And I want to thank the president of this country for signing that act, because it is like biting the bullet on the issues around which people do not believe in. But you see, there are also people, when they talk about issues of climate change, forests, do not cut a forest, do not do this, then you become enemies. But I think we need to be crusaders and know that there is a choice in everything that you do.
The same question, Gasheru, are we walking the talk as a country? Are we walking the talk?
In Kenya, we're very good at making policies and policy frameworks. And Kenya is leading globally, as in is one of the leading countries globally in getting and having good policy frameworks that support environment, support climate change, support all sorts of things. And even countries are coming to Kenya to learn from us, and they go and replicate their lessons, the lessons learned from Kenya in their own country, and they are succeeding. So we need to move from just having the good policy to actually implementing it, and that's where we are, and that's what we need to, that barrier we need to break, because even with a good policy, without implementation, we might not succeed. And we have good examples of where, grassroots things are working and people are engaging nature-based enterprises and they're earning quite a good livelihood out of it. Like in Arabuko Sokoke, for example, where we have been engaging with butterfly, people are keeping butterflies and they're earning a living out of it. And it's all dependent of that small forest in Arabuko Sokoke forest in Kilifi County and the surrounding kayas, and that is being scaled up to other fragments of kaya forest within Kilifi County. And they're earning from between 10 million to 20 million Kenya shillings annually from butterfly farming pre-COVID, because during the COVID period there was a bit of hiccups. But at least we're earning at a bare minimum 10 million Kenya shillings. A farmer could keep a butterfly and could be able to educate their children. A farmer could, even people with living disability can engage in conservation, and therefore they can see the connection between the forest and their livelihoods. So we need to move from having the good policy to actually implementing the policy, and therefore those elements of corruption that we hear about being talked about in the country need to be dealt with appropriately. The president is in the forefront in showing. Last year the president was in Glasgow in the climate change COP26, which happened last year, and you could hear the utterances that he's very committed the government is very committed to this, but now it needs to move to the actual implementation so that it stop being one-sided, to see the entire spectrum of implementation is actually achieved. So that then the businesses in Nairobi, when you talk about renewable energy, it's not just a big business in Nairobi that is generating wind power, for example, or solar, but it's actually being felt by the local mwananchi on the grassroots. So we need to achieve that.
As we talk about the government and even what Kenyans can do, I'm wondering how much of this have we incorporated in what we teach our children in school? Because that will also be a good place to start, inculcating this love for nature, this love for environment, and these practical ways of doing it. Do you think we have really focused on it in the content that we have in our curricula?
I'm happy to mention that in the National Climate Change Action Plan, the first one that was promulgated in 2013, there was an attempt under Section 7 of Curriculum Development and Communication. The attempt was that we now gave a task to the Ministry of Education and the relevant departments of curriculum development to come up with a curriculum that has a lens of climate change, a curriculum that you start learning issues of climate change from elementary level, so that my daughter, my son, will start talking or singing songs around climate change at elementary level, then go to poems maybe in primary section, and then up to the tertiary level, at your degree level, at your PhD level, so that starts with a process from the curriculum development. There is also an attempt by the UN and the Ministry of Environment and the Kenya Climate Change Working Group to come up with a national climate change learning strategy, whereby we are looking at what are the gaps and what can we do around inputting or weaving in climate change in our learning industry, because we want to take it up from elementary level up to the tertiary level, identify what are the gaps, and then put strategies. So there are quite some attempts, although the implementation, as my colleague said, are still wanting.
So it's still wanting, yeah? I also want to take you to something that I want us to discuss before we wind up. Currently, as we're having this sit down in studio, there's a very big chunk of the Kenyan population that are facing starvation. 23 counties have actually been cited as the ones that are worst hit among all the 47 counties. We've been in this for quite a while. Are we ever going to come out of this? If you look at the trends and even our knowledge and our capability of voluntarily taking care of our environment, are we ever going to come out of this cycle? Let me begin with you, Gasheru.
It's a tough question.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this year in, year out.
We have had this, the cycles of drought in the country, and there's always significant losses that we have experienced, and people, livestock being lost. We are working in Kilifi County and places in Narok, and cows are dying on the roadside, and it's a big loss to the economy overall. And one example I can provide is like in Arabuko Sokoke, people who are living adjacent to the forest, for the first time, they actually harvested crop, even with the drought which is happening. So within a small bandwidth around the forest, and because there is the climate regulation that the forest is providing for this farmer who is living beside the forest. So providing the connection of this tree and the farmer besides it. So one thing we need to take much more seriously is elements of nature conservation and nature restoration, and adopting on innovative mechanisms of dealing with production systems that we have in the country. So we can adopt climate smart production, as well as shifting our production, not necessarily to do crop or to do livestock, to do other nature-based enterprises which can still provide yield back to the community. We have seen, like in the pastoralist community, where the government is trying to set up insurance schemes and people off-take livestock, etc. Those elements, those type of programs need to be financed, and therefore community is able to put, like in a bank, I sold my 10 cows and I can put them in the bank, so when the weather is better, I can regain and restock my cows. And there's a general need of shift of culture, so that people stop thinking, I need to keep my cow because it's culturally much more beneficial. It's important to maintain our culture, but we need to gradually move away from our cultural beliefs to ensure that we can adopt new technologies and innovative mechanisms towards responding to the droughts that we have in the country. So that needs to be mainstream overall. Yeah.
We need a dynamic shift.
Yes, yeah.
John, probably something you can add. We don't want to see these headlines,
Sure.
fellow Kenyans dying of starvation, livestock that are lost each and every day due to, harsh climatic conditions. How do we move from that?
The other day I was driving to Hola. Past Mwingi, you see by the roadside, as my colleague said, you feel bad. You see camels, you see goats, you see cows dead on the road. You can't even count. This is an impact to the community. We are now having conflict over natural resources. That is in addition to hunger. We are having people running against others because they do not have water. Water is a key thing. We need to shift our attention from big-scale farming, like in Hola, to Bura, to think about communities, small communities who want just a sand dam to collect water. That ecosystem of one village will be changed. Can we replicate that to different along the river so that people can have assurance of water, and that will change the game in that community? We are paying attention to big-scale farming, but we are forgetting this Tana River is going down up to Kipini without much benefits to the communities which are around. Can we tap this water? Can we tap at the river? Can we tap all these rivers and put sand dams where it's possible so that communities in arid and semi-arid areas can benefit, instead of putting all money in one basket in a big, large-scale farm that fails? Can we shift our attention to doing things differently?
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time. Maybe 1 minute each for your parting shot. Gasheru?
So I think mine is like, look at a country like Israel, Egypt, they're in the desert. Compared to Kenya, it's very green. And there are technologies that they are using to be able to sustain their local community. Those technologies are available to us, which we can adopt and implement. So it's implementing our policies to action. So people need to take at the mantle. We have the county governments that can do more than the national government. They have a mandate, and they need to take the policies into implementation. And this is a clarion call to everyone, that from business to local community to ourselves here, to take part in restoration activities within our country.
All right. Thank you so much. Your parting shot?
Trees are our kidneys in the ecosystem. They clean that water. You take it when it's clean. Trees create oxygen, which is very expensive, and we all know during COVID season what amount of oxygen and how much you are buying. Can we think differently? Can this country look at tree growing instead of tree planting?
Thank you so much for that, and ending it on that note. We really appreciate your time, both gentlemen. And one key thing I carry from here, we need to really find ways in which discussions around climate change and environmental conservation will be given priority in the leadership and the politics of this particular country. Thank you so much also for the initiatives you're doing to connect people to nature for a sustainable future. I was having this sit down with Paul Gasheru. He's the Species and Sites Program Manager at Nature Kenya, and the CEO of Green Africa Foundation, Mr. John Kioli, who is also the chairperson of the Kenya Climate Change Working Group. Thank you once again for your time. On that note, we've come to the end of News Check, but of course we are paving way for the Swahili version of the program, Tamrini and Kurunzi Mashinani. Do stay for that and much more. My name is Serfine Achieng Oma, and our sign language interpreter has been Lensa Odingo, of course, assisted earlier by Anne Wangeshi. Have a good one.